Disney World Swan and Dolphin Resort in Orlando, Florida. It's theCUBE, covering Splunk.com 2016. Brought to you by Splunk. Now, here are your hosts, John Furrier and John.
Hey, hello everyone. We are live in Orlando, Florida at Splunk.com. This is theCUBE, SiliconANGLE's flagship program. We go out to the events and extract the signal from the noise. I'm John Furrier. My co-host this week, hosting with me is John Walls. John, great to see you.
Oh, John, always a pleasure.
Splunk is a great event. I mean, people are so excited. It's an event that gets bigger every year. It's now a public company. They're growing like crazy. They have a new CEO. They're announcing a slew of new products, enhancements, but it comes back down to all of their customers are enjoying the goodness of the core Splunk products, but now are moving to a new generation of IT, a new generation of business, a new generation of challenges and opportunities. So you're seeing all the announcements really talk to that.
Yeah, you mentioned the excitement and the enthusiasm from customers. We're inside the keynote area today, and that really is what strikes you is like how positive and optimistic and upbeat and how supportive this whole community is of each other. And talking about some of those upgrades, it all does come down to, is it not, ease of use, making this stuff a little simpler, because the more tools we get, the more applications we get, the more complex it gets, and it's tough to keep up with all this. Splunk's, I think, really addressing that by trying to keep things easy for people.
Splunk is an algorithms company. If you look at what they do, they were born in the big data, pre-big data age, where they were using log files, looking at the data, taking that exhaust and turning it into gold. We've said that many times on theCUBE. This is the 7th annual Splunk.conference event. We've been doing it for many years. I can't even count how many times we've done this event. We got the little Splunk alumni badge. But they're an algorithms company, and what that means is as they keep modernizing and progressing, they have to keep at pace of what the customer demands are. And right now the number one demand is make IT operations pervasive through the organization, enable automation, enable simplicity, enable efficiency. That's kind of like the operational play. On top of that, the big mandate every company has is security, and Splunk is targeting, and last year we saw it, this year it's out right in the open, all the algorithms around machine learning, investigative security incidents, alerting, predictive tools, all these things are converging around, to me, the top line benefit is security. The other stuff is all goodness for Splunk and their customers, and they're all happy, they're all smiling, walking around like a cult, you know, here, their customers. But there's no cult in security. Security is a top boardroom issue. It is the number one problem in the world. It's the number one tech problem. It's the number one society problem. And Splunk is clearly targeting security and giving their customers the operational capabilities to manage that turbulent world.
Yeah, so if you're a company out there that you know, you've got your own focus, your own competencies, whatever, but the security issue. You're a mainstream company, not even a tech company, but you're a mainstream company. Maybe you're not familiar with all that you need to be worried about. It's a scary environment, is it not, these days, especially about Russia and China and Eastern Europe and all the problems coming from those directions?
It forces companies like Splunk to do things differently, but they have to move faster because the customers are under siege and they're being hacked, and that's pretty much the public knowledge is, don't prevent hacks, assume you're already hacked or have been hacked and try to minimize the damage. That's kind of triage right now in the IT world. That's certainly trying to move to a much more progressive security paradigm. But it goes beyond that, and the other announcement that Splunk did here that was notable is Splunk for Good. They're donating $100 million to the market for essentially an initiative for license and support over a 10-year period, giving away technology to help people and help society become better. And I think that is an enabling concept that's authentic with their company. It's one of those authentic missions. So there's some business benefits, but it's primarily for societal good. Now that points down to what Splunk's doing as a company. A lot of people on Wall Street who buy stocks don't understand the new tech paradigm. And we talked about this last Friday in our new CUBE show. Every Friday at 8 a.m. we do our new podcast show. We're going to be on the 4th week this week where we just have fun and we spend 30 minutes to talk about what's going on. But here's the deal. At Oracle Open World last week, we talked about this. The value in the growth stocks and the growth companies may or may not be Splunk or Oracle, although they will continue to grow. It's the customers. and we're going to hear from a lot of customers here on theCUBE, the new technology growth stocks, or growth companies, are non-tech companies. Because every single business will have to become a technology company. That's where Splunk is going to win. Their technology is scalable, they have on-premise, they have cloud, it's software, it's algorithmic. They are enabling their customers to create value for their business. And what we're seeing on Wall Street is a shift to value. And the value isn't buying necessarily that tech high flyer. That high flyer is a Capital One, it's a Priceline, it's a company that's not a technology company. This is the big trend that everyone's talking about, or not talking about, I should say, but it's like, it's not obvious, but if you squint through it, it's companies like Splunk that are going to create that value for their customers, who will then in turn create value, and that's where we see the growth opportunities in the tech business shifting quickly to.
Yeah, tell me what you think about the notion that you raised that IT is pervasive throughout organizations now. It's no longer just a couple of guys or people sitting in a corner office trying to manage a lot of different functions. It really has become more democratized, for lack of a better word. So what's happening in that?
Here's what's happening. IT's changing, and it just teases out a lot of different talking points. One is, I get asked this question all the time, why are you guys covering Splunk? They're just like a log file company. Why are you guys covering these weird companies? They're not weird companies. One, Splunk is now public, so they've proven that they got lift. But the world is shifting. The world is shifting because the old way in technology was you sell gear, you sell software, the IT department brings it in, they procure it, they provision it, they install it, and the IT, the information technology department, would manage the technology procurement operations of their stuff. That means putting in servers, loading software, having a help desk, all these things. Okay, that was the old way. So the suppliers that sold products into that paradigm are completely being disrupted by the fact that IT now has to be everywhere. The front end on the mobile app. There's the retail operations, there's point of purchase into the back end office in the data center. So IT is no longer that siloed organization. It's now horizontally scaling within the processes of the businesses. So businesses today are, for multiple years, been done this transformation. They call it digital transformation, and that is they are deploying software in every aspect of their organization. And where there's software, there's developers. Where there's developers, there's data. Where there's data, there's databases. So this is creating a new paradigm of technology. And what happens is someone's got to manage that stuff. Right. So the guy behind the curtain, IT, is being taxed operationally, resources, personnel, and so that's the pressure point. The solution is automation, simplicity, abstract away the complexity, automate, and then provision the talent, IT talent, across the organization. So IT has become less of a brute force labor thing with skills to much more like air traffic control, more like a person who's managing the business buttons of the organization and working with the C-level executives to say, okay, I'm business focused now, I'm not so much gear, top of rack, or whatever you want to call it. So the role of the data center and the cloud is creating a whole new architecture of how IT works and the benefits that customers are going to be buying in software and deploying it. So that's kind of the big trend.
But the downside, the challenge is, that means everybody's a user, everybody's inputting, everybody's taking things out, and don't you make yourself a little more susceptible or vulnerable to problems if you give everybody in your organization access to this stuff, and all of a sudden things happen, maybe they share information they shouldn't with somebody.
This is the beautiful thing of technology. You have a euphoria honeymoon phase where all these benefits start coming out. More top-line revenue, more enablement, but what happens when you start getting that surface area of software spread out through the organization, as you mentioned, is that the surface area of attacks from security become really the core problem. So what we're seeing is those benefits are out there, but also the downside of hacking. So security has changed. It used to be with IT that it was a perimeter security. Secure the wall, have a door, back door, front door.
Build a moat, right?
Build a moat. Now that's completely now open. This is the fundamental problem. This is the evolution of this transformation. It's just a progression. Security is a problem.
And we'll hear from people, throughout, today and tomorrow. It's staying ahead of these infiltrations and staying ahead of these intrusions, because it seems like there are an awful lot of resources being dedicated by bad guys to finding ways, inside to beat your firewall, basically. That it's hard to stay one step ahead these days.
It sure is, and we're going to be one step ahead here at .conf2016. I'm John Furrier with John Walls, kicking it off. Exciting to cover Splunk, .conf2016. Stay tuned for 2 days of wall-to-wall coverage. We've got some great guests coming up. We've got a lot of customers who are going to tell their story on what it means to them, the impact of their organization, and of course, we're going to hear from some Splunk executives. Stay watching here on theCUBE. I'm John Furrier with John Walls. We'll be right back after this short break.